All right. We are working on removing the door cards today. For sure, I'm doing the two rear doors. We'll see how I feel if I'm doing the front doors yet, because I still got to drive the car. But trick with these is just finding all little spots where they hid the bolts and stuff. So a little pick like this can be nice, or a screwdriver.
So there's a cover back there that covers up a couple Phillips head screws and then also in the little door handle. So I was zipping those out. So as you just pull the panel towards you and then up and it comes off. And here I'm just removing everything else and this like vapor barrier type thing. And that's pretty much that one. So same thing on the other side, nothing too exciting. Pretty straightforward. The glue that holds on this vapor barrier though is a huge pain. It kind of disintegrates and gets everywhere and it's just real sticky. Is my least favorite part of doing any of these door panels. The front door, much like the last two, same thing.
Hey, Jake, you see this speaker? It's gotta go, bud.
Not gonna lie, the speaker took me a little bit longer to get out than I was hoping for. It took a minute.
Figure I'll give you a little bit of background just so we're not jumping into this a little bit. So, I used to be a mechanic. I'm now in a different line of work. And due to just family and life circumstances, I'm living in a different place than where I grew up. But I'm still friends with some buddies from where I grew up. And one of them got the idea he really wanted to do the 24 Hours of Lemons race, which I was aware of and I knew what it was, but I didn't know about it in great detail. So we decided we're going to do it around the fall of 2025. So we have over a year to get ready for this thing. And if you don't know, the deal with the lemons is you're supposed to race a $500 car. I just happened to have a coworker that was going to junk this thing because it had multiple issues he just didn't want to deal with anymore, and he got a new car. So I offered to buy it for $500. So that's how we ended up with this Accord. I've always wanted to kind of get in like race prep stuff. I used to be a mechanic. I no longer do it, but I think this is pretty cool and I'm pretty excited. I think it's going to be an awesome experience. Plus, who doesn't love to race? So, anyway, that's enough of me talking. Let's get ripping this down.
I know I said it before, but one of the reasons I'm kind of going a little slower when I'm pulling this dash out is that I am trying to preserve the parts so that we have a chance to sell them. So I'm trying not to destroy stuff, even though that'd be a lot more fun and make it go a lot quicker. A lot of this is me really just trying to figure out how all this comes apart. Because a lot of times you have to take something out to gain access to bolts that hold an adjacent thing in. And without really going destructive, just took me a little while to actually figure all this out. So here I'm working on removing the uh, cluster and everything around it. And there's just lots of little bolts that sometimes you miss when you first get in there and you see stuff. If it does move, I'll see if it feels like it's being held up somewhere. If it does feel like it's being held up somewhere, I try and look for a bolt or something that's holding it up. And that's kind of my whole process behind going this. I did cut out a fair amount of me removing or working on this dash just because it did take me a long time. But once I got that bottom part out, I started rolling here. Also, just a note, one of my favorite tools for connectors and stuff is a small screwdriver.
All right, so the actual protocol for removing airbags is to disconnect the battery and then wait about 10 minutes, I believe, for the capacitors and everything to fully discharge, so you're sure there's no residual energy left in any of the system. To be totally honest, normally when I pull airbags, I never disconnect the battery. I think I'm gonna do it this time just because I'm not totally sure how these come apart, and my hands are right there, and I don't really want to be messing with it a whole bunch and accidentally set this airbag off. So I'm gonna actually do it properly here, disconnect the battery.
So I disconnected the battery. I'm just kind of working elsewhere just to make sure that I'm good for this airbag. To be honest with you, it's been a long time since I pulled a passenger airbag out like this, and I couldn't really remember how to do it, to be totally honest, how these little connectors work, but I figured it out. I did cut a lot of this footage out of me trying to figure out how to dash. So underneath all that plastic, there's a structural part you'll see later on. And I kind of had this preconceived notion that if I could get all the plastic off the front of it, that would let me get to the structural part and actually unbolt that. That ended up not being the case. So I spent a lot of time just trying to figure out how to get this thing out. I also cut a lot of footage of me just in there trying to figure it out. Here I decide I'm going to start going after the steering column. Again, I'm kind of stuck on the dash, so I start going after the steering column. There's pretty obvious bolts that hold it in from the underside. So I start pulling this thing. Then it's just got a whole bunch of connectors and uh, points where the electrical is pinned to it. So it just takes me a little bit to actually pop everything off of it so I can pull this steering column completely out of the vehicle. I know this stuff isn't super fun or exciting, but I'm just trying to give you a good idea of what actually goes into doing this. So if you're thinking about doing this yourself, just know there is going to be a significant commitment of time, especially if you really don't have much prior experience working on this stuff. It's probably going to take you a bit longer to do all this. So here what you can see, I figured out that there's some bolts on the left and right side that were holding in the structural element of the dash. And now can feel that the dash is loosening up and I'm getting closer. And a big part of this is just getting all the electrical lines out of the way and disconnected from the dash because it is plugged into the dash in a lot of places and held into the dash in a lot of different places. So I'm just working through all this and then getting disconnecting the main fuse box under. From here, it's just a few more little connectors and just finding the last of those zip ties and little clips that hold the connector in, and the dash comes right out. Barely an inconvenience.
All right, this is currently where the car is at. All right, so here we have the dash. You're obviously looking at it from the back side. And if you look, there's a screw. There's another screw. And then, oh, where were you? Oh, there we are. There's a screw. And then this is one I took out while I was pulling the dash. But I believe it's just those 4 screws, maybe some other things in here holding that front panel on to this metal structural portion. I don't know why Honda did this. It's kind of a pain.
My thought process here was trying to fully disconnect the plastic from the metal, so the structural element from the front part of the dash. Realized that wasn't really going to happen, not really worth my time. I'll just thread all the electrical connectors or the electrical lines and wire out through the dash. So this is what I'm working on. It's just being able to pull it all out of the dash so I can put it back in the vehicle and start figuring out what I need.
All right, got the dash fully out, got the wiring harness out. I think I'm just gonna lay the harness back in for now, kind of see how it's laid out, since I kind of want to see how all that looks. And I can start getting an idea of what I need, what I don't need. All right, so this is roughly what the harness will be in. Obviously not exactly, but this way I can start kind of visualizing what connectors go where and what I need. Hopefully this is helpful to you. Hopefully you got some idea of at least what it takes on this to get to the point where we still have a long ways to go.